Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Season Ticket Holders. I'm your host, Dane Lillingston, and I have another very special guest with me on a special Queensland-only edition of Season Ticket Holders. He's a Fox Sports News Brisbane reporter, does it all himself up there. Fantastic job. VJ extraordinaire, all-round Queensland sports fan, and A-grade troll, Josh Bristow. Welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
Yeah, guilty as charged. Thanks, Dane. No, great to be on the show. It's been awesome watching your starters. So started off, so I'm keen to get involved.
Thanks, fan. And you have stitched me up yourself a few times, haven't you, on air?
Yeah, I think well, you were right for the taking when you were covering the Blues. I think that was probably my greatest effort. But I have come on seeking advice from you because you're
Here we
probably the
go. Here we go. Didn't take long. Didn't take long. Please proceed.
you're probably the only person that's been allowed to have facial hair on Fox Sports, mate. Um, I
I
recently what is the secret? I recently went away on holidays for 6 weeks and thought I'd give the facial hair a go. And in my own accord, I reckon I was sort of rocking a bit of a George Clooney type
You would
rugged
think that.
look. Yeah, my missus approved. I came back. I sent the hopeful text to Scotty, our boss, the night before, and it was instantly nicked in the bud. But then I arrive on Monday, and who do I see doing a cross on TV? Beautiful Dane Lillingston with his beautiful, thick, bushy beard.
What
So,
can
what can you tell me?
what can I say, mate? I just pull it off. I've never got in trouble once. I actually heard, I did hear rumblings already that you were in trouble, so it didn't take long to pull you off the air, mate. But we can't
Yeah,
pull it off. What can I say?
yeah. My last trial is again. I was on holiday, so I grew it in a little bit. Again, got some compliments. I think I look good. You look good. We're both
That
short men on Fox Sports.
Short Kings,
Um,
thank you. Represent.
yeah. And I thought I got away with it for about 4 days, and I did a couple of crosses with Fox, and it was fine. But then I believe it was Ash Barty announced her shock retirement. So Sky News, the news channel, wanted me on, and I think I lasted one cross before I got a text message to go to the nearest servo and get rid of
And
it.
you did, mate.
Yeah,
You're just gonna have to. I don't know, mate. I'll give you some tips off air after the podcast, Bristow. See how we
yeah.
go. Yeah, yeah.
Not everyone learning it.
I'll send them to you, mate. Now, what I normally do when I get guests on for the first time is talk to them about the team and why they're so passionate. I asked you who your favorite team was, and you gave me the Brisbane Tigers, which is left of field, but we can go with that, mate. But first off, just to introduce yourself to the audience, I just want to talk to the audience a little about who you are, where you're from, and why do you love rugby league?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a weirdo. I don't really have a team. I've always loved league, and I mean, even more of the weirdo. So, as a kid growing up in Brisbane, of course, you love the Broncos, and we're '90s kids, as cringe as that term is. So they were
Just
just winning all the time, so you couldn't not love the Broncos. But then I had an extremely, maybe looking back on it now, weird association with Wendell and Lottie.
yeah,
How could you not as kids? They were so big.
superstars on each wing, just absolutely incredible, mate. I remember Wendell was
Yeah,
one of my very first favorite players. Yep.
yeah, an absolute personality as well. But then when people say all these high profile code switches like Suoli'i, now like what is it worth? Well, when Union bought both of those two blokes, I suddenly became a huge Union fan. Backed up by then going to a private school, of course, 'cause that's the only thing you play up here.
You're ticking all the boxes. Yep.
Yeah, so I was a big Union fan after that. Sort of a product of my surroundings, and then so I sort of fell out of league a little bit in high school sort of areas. I was a bit of a snob, to be honest, and the Reds were good then as well. But then Lottie went back to league, and he had that amazing 2010 season with the Tigers.
That's right. I
Lost,
remember that.
scored with his very first touch back in the NRL, as I think Warren Smith called it. Um, I'm
It was
revealing my power level here. But, yeah, so got really back into league then, and that's sort of the time, where you've left school. I sort of had a part-time job. I was just ravenous for league, devouring it all the time. Went through uni. I think we both went to QT, didn't we?
No, I went to UQ actually.
Oh, okay, so you're the snob in this instance.
I am, yeah, the nice fancy sandstone buildings. But QT
Yeah,
was quite good, I hear.
it's a beautiful lawn. Well, at least you don't have the embarrassing QT news videos still floating around on YouTube.
That's true. We actually didn't do any online video. We had the radio station, but we didn't have yours. We'll have to post a YouTube link after the show of yours.
Yeah, I've got it. There's one where I've got again. I'm trying a mustache, but I'm about 20, so it's not really working for me. But I've got this sort of like UK soccer lad haircut going on too. It's truly abominable.
I'll post it for the audience after
Yeah,
this for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, but then so I didn't really know what I wanted to do in at uni. I just sort of did journalism because I liked writing. I wasn't really into, doing being a sports journalist. But then a month before we finished, I broke my ankle playing for the mighty Karina Tigers.
It's
Um,
throwback. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Uh, and that week I did a placement at Channel 7. Long story short, picked up a friendship with a camo, and he saw my broken ankle and was like, "Oh, you love sport. There's like a vacancy going for a month up in Cairns as a sports reporter. Would you do it?" I was like, "Yeah, why not?" And then basically ten years next month, I've been a sports journalist. So yeah.
And we got into it at a very similar time because, of course, we met each other when I was in Cairns and you'd moved to Townsville at that point, right? And I think that was the first time we'd met. You were at
Yeah,
seven down there.
I don't think we had any overlapping cans, did we? But
No,
what a place! Like I always say, I would move back tomorrow.
to cover the
Um,
mighty Cairns Taipans, of course, is what you mean.
I absolutely, I just miss covering the Cairns Taipans. I'll say no more than that.
Yeah, yet to win a championship. We can't wait with bated breath. I am a Taipans fan, so I should say shout out to the Taipans.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah,
awesome, mate. And then obviously, yeah, Fox Sports News. I remember you actually took the job I wanted, so that was great. The Brisbane
yeah.
VJ job. So
Have we met in the car park yet to sort this out? Or
we haven't. We're gonna have to line that up again. We can stream that on season ticket holders, so I'm sure that'll be a good episode.
we may have
Uh,
10 years.
That's right. Well, that's awesome, mate. And then obviously we stayed in touch. Now we're colleagues, so it is awesome, mate. You do a great job up there as a one-man show, which isn't easy
Mate.
when you are in
Fun.
when you're in a team. What was, sorry, when we were growing up, a one-team town in the Brisbane Broncos. Of course, you had the Lions and their success in the early 2000s, but we all know the Broncos dominate the headlines up there. And now the Dolphins. So, do you want to just give us a little bit of an overview of sort of what that landscape has been like for you the last few years of covering it? When you've had the Dolphins come in, you obviously have to cover the Gold Coast Titans, and you do have experience, of course, covering the Cowboys from Townsville. So you've got to cover all the
Yeah,
Queensland teams. Could you just give us a
I
bit of an
have.
overview of what that's like and how the landscape has changed the last few years?
Yeah, it's been interesting, man. I mean, as you touched on, I'm a one-man band, so I do a lot of driving. And what hasn't helped is the Broncos are like inner city Brisbane. You've now got the Dolphins at Redcliffe, 40-minute drive north, and now the bloody Brisbane Lions have moved to Ipswich.
Just to spread it all out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got Titans and Suns as well. So I'm really hitting all 4 points of the compass. But it's been good. I mean, as you said, bro, like Broncos are the Kings. Like, I mean, it's a bit like how I always hear on sort of Melbourne podcasts, just if a Collingwood player sneezes, it's the front page, back page. It's sort of that kind of feeling up here, isn't it?
100%. 100%.
I mean, I feed into that, of course, but
You have to.
it's been interesting with the Dolphins coming in. I have mentioned to this off air. I feel like they stuck the landing. The first game, getting that win, they had a couple of wins in a row. I believe that the first Battle of Brisbane was amazing.
Good rivalry early on.
Yeah, but they've sort of plateaued, haven't they? And I really feel like this year is the one to watch, particularly for crowds, because their crowds dropped a bit last year, and they were in the top four for most of the competition. If I'm not wrong.
They did have some early. Yeah, I remember that. They were pretty strong midway through the season, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah. And then it sort of caught up with them. Yeah, so I'm really interested now, and now they're really struggling. As much as I love Brisbane, as much as I love Queensland fans, we are a massive fair weather town. I mean, you look at the Lions; they're good again now. Like they're packing out the Gabba every week, but they were hard out getting 10K, for 10 years after the three-peat. And
That's right.
the Raw was selling, we're getting higher crowds. The Raw Salona eras, now is
Those
there 10 people at Suncorp for those games?
remember those grand finals. I don't know if they're all, but I do remember that one in particular, that credible grand final that Raw had where they came back in extra time. I can't
Yeah,
remember
extra
exactly what
time.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was what a moment.
Enrique
Yeah.
scored, maybe, I think. Yeah. Well, yeah, what a team. I'm not a soccer guy, but I was on the Raw Salona train. Um, and yeah, so I really think before we all talk about PNG, a second New Zealand team, Perth, Central Coast Bears, Bali Bears, or wherever they're attaching themselves to these days. I think maybe we need to sort of slow back a bit and just check where the Dolphins are going to be in the next couple of years. Because if they are not successful, or if we end up with a Gold Coast Suns sort of situation on our hands, I think it could get fairly hairy, and we might sort of rue jumping into expansion. But yeah, so I'm really interested to follow how the Dolphins go. I really hope they get a win soon.
Well, that's a fair point, man, because I was going to bring that up with you. I pulled up the numbers. I think at least that AFL tables, NRL tables, that's sort of the gospel when you Google it anyway, but has the
Mm.
averages for the last, well, in existence for all both codes. But first year, 25K around about for the Dolphins. Last year, 21K. So a drop of 4,000 people around about in the averages. Then I thought the most interesting comparison would be to go to the Titans. Now, they, of course, came in 2007. They averaged 21,000 their first 2 years. That dropped to 19,000 in their third season, then to
Yeah,
17,000, and then it dropped 1,000 until it hit rock bottom in 2015 at 11,000. That's of course picked up. Last year they got 18,000 over COVID. Just about every club's experienced a boom
yeah,
since the COVID years. But would you worry that that could be a trajectory they could follow? Obviously, the Gold Coast Titans, that's a hard market to crack. And even to get 21K for
yeah.
2 years, that sounds crazy to think about now. But would you be worried that they could dip below if the results don't go there? Of course, terrible start to the season. Christian Wolf taking over in his first year in charge as full-time coach, hasn't had a win yet. They've just had the bye. They showed some fight against the Broncos in the Battle of Brisbane. They looked okay. I don't know about their halves. They've got an aging forward pack. They've got some good experience mixed in. What's your prediction?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you start any sentence with like, "Do you think they're going down the path of the Gold Coast Titans?" You're probably already up against it, aren't you?
Not the
Interesting that the
comparison.
crowds dropped steadily from that first year because they were good for sort of 5 years, weren't they? I loved that Matty Rogers, Scotty Prince team that made the prelim, I think.
They had a
But
great
yeah,
inaugural team
it's
for sure.
I mean, yeah, yeah. But back on the Dolphins, like I was saying before, like it's the Wayne Bennett magic dust. I don't know what he does. Like they sort of have a similar roster, don't they, to last year? And even though they didn't make the finals, they were competitive, weren't they? They almost made the finals.
Yeah, they
I
were
think
round
they needed to
about.
make win one more game.
And then they absolutely blew the Bron. I mean, when the Broncos started faltering towards the end of the season, they completely blew them off the park in the first win they've had in that Battle of Brisbane.
Yeah, yeah,
No, I was going to say, funny you mentioned Wayne Bennett, just because I was also going to say the flip side is the Wayne Bennett curse, if that's what you're going to talk about. Every time he seems to leave a team, this seems to happen. And whether it was the Knights, Dragons, like no team, even the Broncos, when he left originally, we saw how many coaches failed after he came in. You reckon that's hurting now, the Wayne Bennett curse?
you take back what you said about Ivan Henjak, mate. Yeah, no. Well, he's officially got the worst start of any coach to follow Bennett. I looked up the stats the other week. He was if they had beaten the Broncos, he would have tied Jason Demetrio because they went 1-3 in his first year in charge of South. But so he now officially has the worst start after the Bennett era. So look, it's. I mean, I guess look, their team hasn't gotten better, has it? Jesse Bromwich retired. Their forward pack was already old. It got a year older, and I feel we might talk about the DCE speculation, but I just feel awful for them because ever since they started and a big star has become available, they come out again and go, "Oh, we're keen. We've got all this money." And so far, they've landed essentially no one, but maybe if you count Hammer as a superstar,
Which you
and he
wouldn't,
can,
like an established superstar. He's been great, but you can't count him
yeah,
either. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They missed on Brandon Smith, Cam Munster,
Ponga.
but yeah, Ponga now potentially DCE. You sort of feel sorry for them, and I don't get it. It's a lovely place to live, Redcliffe. I mean, you wouldn't even have to live in Redcliffe if you didn't want to do that. And
No,
they're like a proper club. Like that's why they got put in. They've got a proper gym, a
history.
proper pool. They're not training out of demountables or at a high school like some Queensland clubs that I follow or try to follow closely.
Which one's
Um,
Bristow?
yeah, yeah, the team you maybe compared them to earlier.
Yeah,
Uh,
which
but
is now flooded and they can't use, right?
yes, yeah, and I think they have to vacate. They're at a golf course at the moment. They have to vacate at the end of the year.
Yeah, not good.
Um, so yeah, I don't really know how the Dolphins get out of there because I rate Wolfie as a coach. He's had success at the
Seems like
Blackhawks.
it seems like a good guy who's done a good apprenticeship.
Yeah, I don't think you could have done a longer apprenticeship with him. He's taken in charge of many teams. What he's done with Tonga,
Amazing.
you can't argue. Went over to Super League. I believe he won a couple of titles with St Helens, didn't he?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe in him. I just don't think he has the cattle. And the Wayne Bennett magic dust, it's real, isn't it? He made this team competitive for finals last year. And if you look at their upcoming games, I know they've got the Titans this week, who have suddenly found some form, but then
Yeah.
they've got Penrith, Melbourne, and then Canberra away. They could easily be 0-8. By the time we talk in a month or so.
No, that's true, mate. And I think I was watching obviously very closely the game against the Broncos the other night. I think Hamiso had only had or hadn't had a line break all season. I think that was
Yeah,
the stat, which is incredible to think about
100%.
the form that he's had for Queensland. I can't say that I've religiously watched every Dolphins game this season, but the fact that he's not firing and like we said, he's almost their marquee player or has turned into their marquee player, that's got to
Yeah.
be a pretty big concern. Have you noticed anything about him this year?
Well, nothing really. I mean, we've been at Dolphins. I was at Dolphins training today, actually, and he was all involved. And every time we asked that question over the last couple of weeks, the sort of line is that they haven't been able to get him the ball where he wants it in the right spot.
The classic, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's true. Guys like that, if you just give them out in front, you've broken the line or what. But they're just not doing it, are they? They're just getting beaten in front. It's the age-old cliche in rugby league, but you can't really do much if you're going backwards.
That's right. I found it interesting in those early exchanges against Brisbane. They did sort of dominate them, but then obviously as the game wore on, that just didn't work. The other thing that I think would be concerning is Cody Nikorima really their best option to partner Katoa because
Yeah,
he's a
it's
great
tough,
player.
isn't it?
I love what he does, and Katoa's got a future. He's a lot of potential. Is the future of the team. You also have Sean Sullivan, right, waiting in the wings. I
They're
don't
a
know
team. They're a team of good 14s, aren't they?
exactly,
You
right.
know, a lot of other clubs would love to pick apart a few Dolphin starters and have them come on as 14s. But as a starting NRL level players, I think they're lacking. I am a huge believer in Katoa's talent, and it is his team. Like it's incredible to watch at training how much he is the man. And I think is he even 20 yet?
I
Like,
actually don't. I don't know.
yeah,
Let me
crazy
look.
to think he's come in and been pretty good. I mean, his sort of end of game um, nous lacking, but you'd expect that from a young player. Again, really hard to throw a 19, 20-year old into the quarterback back position essentially.
I just
Um,
looked it up, 21. So still obviously, and it only,
yeah,
only just turned 21.
yeah. So I guess they're and he's signed on for quite a while, so he is the future basically. But imagine if they had a Ben Hunt or a DCE come in, that would be perfect for him and perfect for them.
Well, that brings me to my next question, Bristow, because it's obvious. Daly Cherry Evans, he's on the market, and if he was going to go to a Queensland team, you're the one who has the ear to the ground down there. From
Yeah.
the outside looking in, you'd have to think it'd be the Dolphins. If he does, I know they've said a lot of things about his family being set up in the northern beaches in Manly with his daughters going to school there. Obviously, the Roosters are probably going to be the number one target. They're going to have a lot of money. But if he ends up in Queensland, would you think it'd be at the Dolphins?
I think it would be, but I think it's pretty like long odds. I mean, the Dolphins again, that we were chatting to them today. They said, yes, we're interested. Of course, we'd be interested, but we're not going to approach him. And that's sort of been their line all along. I mean, I guess maybe they've been bitten a few too many times and, they'll just let him come to him. But I will say that, like in this day and age, how much is the romance of coming back for his junior club and where his dad, Troy, played BRL in the 80s? Like, does that really hold much sway with guys in 2025? And if you think about a guy like Daly, um, would he's got 2 more years, right? He believes, or that's the chat.
Yeah.
Are the Dolphins going to realistically contend over the next 2 years? Probably not. And the Dolphins have admitted that they can't offer him the money that the Roosters would be able to. And he would need to move his whole family, who've lived basically their whole lives in Sydney, to Queensland. I don't think it's that clear cut. It is romantic, isn't it? And the Dolphins would love it. And then I mean the other thing is like we all say he's a Dolphins junior, but he did move to Mackay when he was like 6. So like Mackay is home for him. Does it? I did say to them, does he want to come up and play his last 2 years with the Cutters? But again, I don't really think that's feasible. I think it's pretty much the Roosters if he does play on. That would make most sense to me.
Show me the money. right?
Yeah, basically.
That's it. That's it, man. I mean, I got to speak during the week with Jake Trbojevic and the Manly players and the Anthony Seibold presser as well. And yeah, I mean, the more you look into it, it feels like money is the thing. I mean, disrespect, firstly, with Manly and how
Yeah.
he was treated there. But a club's going to need to offer $1 million. And while the Dolphins could, I think the family aspect and the Roosters are going to be able to offer him so much. So it'll be interesting, man. I don't know. I would personally, as Queenslanders, I think we'd all love to see him come home, and do it. Anyway, I don't care what Queensland team, not the Broncos. That's not going to happen. But
Imagine if it's the Titans. What a crazy full circle that would be.
how do you reckon? I mean, I've said this previously during the week, but I think during that period, 10 years ago, when he backflipped on that Titans deal, I think it's the only time where Queenslanders booed a Queenslander. That's how I felt. Like that's
Yeah,
what.
I mean the famous Coast Bulletin back page, like you're just another cockroach or something. I remember, and he was photoshopped. Like it was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah,
But
I'm.
like credit to him, how much of an ornament to the game and Queensland footy, particularly, he's become. Like it's been awesome to watch his comeback.
I was going to say, incredible that he did able to do that whole redemption arc because yeah, from getting booed there, even with the Queensland, remember at the time there's a bit of animosity with him even being in the team, and like it felt like he was on the nose a little
But he
bit
was
with some.
basically blacklisted.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah, he
exactly, and
was
then
basically blacklisted for 4 seasons, I believe.
yeah, and then to come back and end up being captain, he's going to go down as an all-time great for club and state. Incredible, mate. I want to keep moving through the teams though. With the Dolphins, we can't go past. We've got to go with the big boys, the Broncos. Incredible start to the season. They always had that bad loss to the Raiders. Probably shouldn't say incredible, but a nice, strong start to the season. Even taking away from the
I
fact,
was like, geez,
yeah,
you're showing
maybe
your power level here.
yeah, maybe that was my scarf in the background. Maybe
They've
that's
been all
the
right.
one
They've
eye
been
thing. A strong
okay.
start to the season, I want to say. Three
Yeah.
three wins, and that loss to the Raiders, of course. The one thing I want to touch on just straight off the bat is they've been able to do it without Reece Walsh playing any good footy,
Mm.
really. He's really looks to be down on confidence. I think he had a much better game against the Dolphins. He didn't seem to
Yeah.
get stressed out. You see those moments where he drops the ball, he tries to push that little moment that's not quite there. He gets frustrated, very obviously on the field. He looked like he took it back a bit. He calmed down. There was barely any errors in his game against the Dolphins. What have you just noticed about him, mate, at training? And he's got a couple of years now from that really breakout superstardom 2023 grand final year to see, obviously, injury interruptions, getting knocked out in Origin last year, never really quite came back the same, I would say. Now a
Mm.
slow start to the season. What have you made of it?
Well, I don't know. I think maybe he's just adjusting to life where he doesn't have to be, the Kalen Ponga leading the Knights every week like he maybe felt he had to last year. The Broncos have such a stacked roster this year. And like you said, the Dolphins, I think he played well. He played probably to a level where he wasn't hurting them.
What a
he,
compliment.
yeah, and he made a couple of like defensive reads, and I think that were pretty important for them in that game.
I think defensively was the most impressive thing. His
Yeah,
attack's been lacking, but I think defensively he seemed to have really taken a step up in that last game.
yeah, and like he's always been a guy who makes errors. Like even in 2023, when he had that unbelievable season, he was making. I think he was the most error-ridden player in the game. I think that was the stat everyone was rolling out.
Pretty close, but he made up for it because then he would score a try and a line
Yeah,
break and
but
do all that
but
crazy
the
stuff to
the
offset
highlight
it.
play was coming off, right? So,
Yeah.
and those things are always just like the 1%. You could be 1% off some crazy pass or step, and once it starts to fall, and I think it will. I'm a huge believer in his talent. Um, I think it
100.
will fall for, and it'll be incredible when it does fall because I feel like the systems in place around him now are pretty incredible. I mean, that spine is insane. If the Bronx don't win it this year, Dane, they probably need to fold the club.
You don't believe that they're going to win it this year, do you? Or do you really believe that? No, you don't.
Look, we need to see more footy, don't we? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
question of any podcast that's going on right now. But I was high on them in the preseason. I was top four finish and contenders again.
As most pundits were. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got kind of in. I said the exact same thing. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. They've just they've had the roster. Now they've got the premiership credentialed coach. That was going to make them put their shirts on at training and all that sort of extraneous stuff that was reported. But I do believe there is some truth in that.
What the whole rock star mentality, putting the shirts back in?
Yeah, like it got a little bit overblown as we tend to do, but
Oh, you
there
tell us,
were
Bristow, because we're the ones watching Fox Sports News. You're reporting us. You tell us.
yeah, I will say, I mean, it's not new to say that, there's some sort of there was some ingrained arrogance with that club. And why wouldn't they, considering how much success they have had? But I don't need to remind you that, the last premiership was in 2006.
Was it? Yeah, no. Darren Lockyer, Shane Webke's last game,
Yeah, and
classic.
I
Yeah.
feel like at times the pressure of playing for such a storied club can make them sort of go into the siege mentality when they don't need to. And when it's all going wrong, it just snowballs everything. And I think that's essentially what went wrong last year. I don't want to say they bought into their own hype, but maybe they did, And I think Madge is pretty good at telling them, this is who you are and this is what you've done.
One thing I did read during the week was the training vision. It's very restricted under Madge. Is that right? He's not giving you as much time to sort of witness and film training. I think I saw that in maybe a
Yeah,
Kieran
I
Mail
wouldn't
article.
say. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's much different to Kevy, but it is. It's it's Cowboys level. At least when I was up in Townsville, they were probably the worst. I remember in Townsville with the Cowboys, you would get maybe a minute of them stretching their legs,
Classic.
and then get told to go inside. And back then, their old stadium was 40 minutes away from all the television studios, so it was a long, long way to go out for not much. But yeah, at the moment at the Bronx, I think it's 10 minutes of them walking onto the field, and you'll maybe get them doing a suicide up and back,
Yeah.
and then that's it.
Ho, ho, run.
Yeah, yeah. And then I will say the Dolphins, they let you film absolutely everything, which
Okay.
which as a journo is amazing, and you can really, I mean, it's good for their sponsors because whenever I do a Queensland Wrap Pack, it's always the Dolphins because I've got 30 minutes of good footage.
The freshest vision, fresh picks, new picks, not just training from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. But you know what? Like, if they keep losing, I said to a camo the other day, I suspect that might be one of the first things that changes.
No,
Uh,
no more open training sessions.
that was something that was put in place by Wayne Bennett.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
I don't know if that's carried over to Souths, but he was like, I've got nothing to hide, and he is potentially the greatest coach of all time. So I do find it funny when other coaches get extremely pedantic about us filming training.
Yeah, especially when a lot of times it's in a public park and any punter can come with their mobile phone and film their trick play and then ruin all their
Yeah,
secrets. I mean, South are the same that they've always been since I've been here, which is you can film the first 20 minutes, but again, the back of their field opens up to a public park where there's people walking all the time.
yeah.
So how secret is it? Look, with the Broncos too, mate, you can't go past Adam Reynolds, aging like a fine wine. The problem
How's
with
his hamstring?
okay, you can tell us more. You can break here on the podcast. But I mean, from what he's on the field this year, he's looked amazing. He's looked really good. Getting the better of like even him and Ben Hunt. Ben Hunt sort of taking a backfield, having that one side of the field and just chimes in when he can. Adam Reynolds is still pulling all the strings. The problem with Adam Reynolds and the contract situation that's been out throughout the week is that they didn't have space, assuming that he would retire at the end of this year and take a coaching role next year. But if he stays like he does now, you'd have to think he plays on one more season. What are you thinking? How's this all going to turn out? Because if he does play on, that's going to create a conundrum. I know they've got Katoni Staggs and Selwyn Cobbo trying to fit them all in for six, seven,
Mm.
800,000. It's going to be a bit of a squeeze already to fit all that in. Do you think Adam Reynolds is going to play on next year?
I think he is. I think he's really enjoying his footy this year, and he always said he would stop playing when he's not enjoying it anymore. And you're watching him play this year. I don't think he's reached the end of the road. It is interesting, I mean, and you've also got Ezra Mam somewhere out there in the wilderness right now as well to come back, and they've got him on big money as a big time player. So I think he's still got a couple more weeks of that suspension. You'd
Until
imagine.
round 10, I think he can play.
Yeah, but so maybe this becomes more of a problem next year if they've got to fit Ben Hunt, Ezra Mam, Adam Reynolds in the halves, and then I think they've got their highly into, I believe, Kobe Black.
Yes, yes. The young
Uh,
guy, what's he only like 19, but he's touted
yeah,
as their long-term
they've
prospect,
got big
right?
raps on him, and he played well for South on the weekend, I think, in Q Cup.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a great headache to have, isn't it? But something's got to give there. And I think though, you can see with the DCE and with Reynolds at South, like clubs just overthink this, don't they? Like if you've got a top five, top eight halfback, like don't let them go. Like they're rare as hen's teeth right now.
Hey, every time I meet a South fan down here, I just say, "How's Adam Reynolds?"
Yeah,
Like it's the same thing, and like they all agree, like it was a terrible decision to ever let him go. Like, look what he's done. He should have won a grand final 2 years ago. And he's
yeah.
looking just as good as he ever has. You did touch on what I was going to bring up next too, which was Ezra Mam is going to come back in round 10. We all know what happened. It was a 9 game suspension, the 5-8. You've then got Corey Pakes, who started the season
Mm.
amazingly in the number 9. You've got Billy Walters, who seems to have really found a home as like an impact 14 utility. He looked great the other night.
Maybe the
And
Dolphins will sign him.
yeah, well, someone's got to give because then Blake Moser official as well? Is that extension or is that rumored that it's about to be official?
Yeah, I think it's coming out soon. Yeah,
So that's about to happen, and he is, of course, touted once as the next Cameron Smith. We all know that line gets
there's about
drawn.
200 of them.
So you've got all those players trying to fit into one hooker, 114 spot, and the 5'8", with Ben Hunt, of course, who I wouldn't say he's been amazing, but been very solid and added a lot of experience to this
Yeah.
team that had a lot of inexperience in some places. How does that jigsaw fit in round 10, I believe, when Ezra Mam comes back? Can he slot straight into the 6? Ben Hunt goes to 9. Who wins the 14? Or does Mam have to fight his way back into this team, considering they've started pretty well?
Yeah, I think he's not getting in the team unless they start losing a bunch of games, right? And he's playing his ass off in cup. Like I think again that's sort of part of his mistake. You do that, and a guy comes in like Ben Hunt and takes your spot. It's going to be pretty hard to oust him out. And I love Pakes at hooker, and Billy Walters has been great off the bench. I don't think you can move Ben Hunt. He's been, again, he's not been the star, but he hasn't needed to be. I think it just really makes that backline gel. I
Yeah.
don't think you can throw Ezra Mam. I think it would be a bad look for them to throw Ezra Mam back in as well.
Well, it would be
Nothing's
just
promised, basically.
it would be a big insult to what Pakes and Walters have done as well, because they've done an
Mm.
amazing job with that 1-2 punch. Pakes is laying the platform. Billy Walters is coming in beautifully, being able to pick his spots.
Yeah.
Do you think you have to come back through Cup then? I mean, that's probably what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think it could be an extended staying cup. I think a bit of time with Carmichael Hunt as his coach for Souths, and Anthony Milford I think is playing 7 for Souths.
I,
That could be a smoky team for the Q Cup championship.
I hope
The-
Milford wins something. He needs. He was my favorite player back in the day. I really hope Milford finishes with something.
I
Anything.
saw him do a crazy cutout pass for a try on the weekend. So
Talent has never been the issue with Anthony Milford, man.
yeah.
Like I think it's all upstairs.
That's true.
Um,
With Ezra though, like, and you have to think, I mean, a bit like Reece, he didn't really have a great year last year anyway. It's not like he
very
was,
true. I think
yeah,
you'd be hard pressed in that team. I've said this before as well. You'd be hard pressed to find any player that improved from 2023, which is, I reckon, another big part of why they didn't do very
yeah.
well last year and bomb
Only it
out.
was only really, I think Pat Carrigan went up a level again last year, and Payne was the same superhuman we know. But I think, yeah, you're right. Everyone went backwards, didn't they?
Yeah. And then the final thing I want to touch on, you just said it just then on the Broncos. My call at this part of the season is that Payne Haas is the best player in the comp. That's what I'm going with. At the moment, the
Yeah,
way he started, I'm not just saying forward, I'm saying right now, Payne Haas is the best player in the NRL because the way he started the season, mate, when you can't stop his offload, I remember 2 weeks ago, it's absolutely lethal. He's just so big and strong that when he turns around, it's not like an offload that might not come off, that's pushed or rushed too fast. He literally can just nicely pass on the ball, put it on a platter to make an extra 10 meters off some second phase play. Like he is just absolutely, and that try he did, of course, there was a bit of lazy defense 2 weeks ago when he just strolled through. But mate, he's got the one of the biggest motors in the NRL. He's so quick for a big man. He's strong. His footy IQ is pretty decent as well. What do you think, man? Because obviously, easily the best prop in the game right now. But I think he's just about the best player. He has gone to another level under Madge at the moment.
yeah. I can't disagree with you about him being the best. He'd probably be the first. If you started a club and you could pick any player, I think Payne would probably be the number one player to pick right now. He reminds me, the only sort of players I can think of that I watched was, peak in terms of just unstoppable force is like peak Taumalolo, and maybe like the 2 years that Andrew Fifita looked like he was a man playing against boys. Like
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy how big and skillful he is. So you said we both agree he's the best player in the NRL, but he is probably $200 to win the Dally M, isn't he? Like he will
Well,
never win the Dally M.
that's a whole nother discussion about the corruption. Well, not corruption, but the whole problem with
Skewed system. Yeah.
yeah, and they keep changing it, but it feels like it gets worse almost. But yeah, mate, right now he has incredible. The story too during the week, of course, I think there was Manly, a couple other teams. Do you think that the Broncos are going to have to lock him down long term? Do you think there's any
Mm.
chance that he ever leaves Brisbane? I remember he got booed at Suncorp only, what was that, a couple of years ago when he
Requested a
asked for release.
release. I remember that. Yeah. Sort of
And
NBA style.
yeah, man, and obviously a bit of a contract play. It's worked out for now. He's obviously $1 million plus prop. I mean, I think 1.2 easily, and I think he's getting pretty close to that in his current contract anyway.
Mm.
Any chance you think he'd leave the Broncos?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're probably having to look at sort of this is off the top of my head, but they're going to have to look at a contract like Dylan Brown, Taumalolo, DCE, I think, because the interest is going to be there, isn't it? I mean, clubs wouldn't be doing their due diligence if you're not putting an offer out for Payne Haas. He's from Sydney, he's a big blue. I think the pull is there, but I think that's why the Broncos sort of feel they need to win. I think, as you said, the request to leave, I think, was in 2022.
Yep.
They'd been a bad team for quite a while, but he was, a top five player in the NRL, and I could see why he wanted to leave then. But if they create a winning culture and they're winning all the time, they're making finals, making grand finals. I don't think he would leave. He's pretty set up here, but And the other part of Payne, touch on briefly, is just he's doing it through Ramadan. He's doing it through all his personal struggles. Like the man is insane.
It's
Um,
incredible, Ramadan, man. That always just, man, just incredible that he does what he does when you can't eat during the day, during that period, and he's been able to just do it.
and used it to get out of a press conference the other week too, just quietly. But he's allowed to do it.
You gotta love that as a journo. But how can you argue with Ramadan?
Yeah.
Um, Mate, well, yeah, no, I think they're in for pretty good year, but that contract situation is going to get messy towards the end because if Adam Reynolds plays on and they don't have the cash, there's already talk that either Selwyn or Katoni would go. There's obviously mail that
Mm.
Katoni's about to re-sign. I have to think that if you had to push someone out, and personally, I think of every time is Selwyn. I think he's the player that would go. Just because I think that's the player that should go if they had to choose a player that's 700,000, 800,000. I think Katoni represents everything that the Broncos are great about. The Stags, he just always has the heart. Every time we've struggled, even during the wooden spoon years, even just watching the other night, the instant impact he had when he came back into that team. Cobbo's a superstar. He's an origin player. He's great. But I just think if you had to let someone go, that's the player I'd be pushing out.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, look, both incredible players. I wouldn't say I'm as high on Stags as you there. Maybe he was great against the Finns. He loves playing against the Finns, actually. But
Our house. Our house. I love that shit. Awesome when he
yeah.
does it, man. Gets me
Um,
jacked.
but I would say he went backwards big time last year. I know he had some injury struggles. See, for me, I would pick Cobbo because I feel like Cobbo's ceiling is insanely high.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Stags, I think he's if he gets back to that year he made Origin, like we I guess it's the eternal struggle, of the mystery box versus the known quantity, right?
You know what you're gonna get with Stacks, 100%. You know what you're
Yeah,
gonna
I
get.
just think, is Cobbo a guy that you let go and then in 3 years he's like the best fullback in the comp, you know?
And there's always that chat that he does want to play fullback. Of course, he didn't work out in the centers for him last year. That's why he was definitely a player that for me went backwards. Obviously back at home on the wing this year, and I think that is you can obviously where he was.
Yeah,
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, mate. I'm sure there's a few Broncos fans split, but for me, Stags, 100%. That's what I'd be keeping. Let's just shift to the Gold Coast, mate. Crosstown further.
this will be
They're,
quick.
yeah, they're a team that they're a team. Well, you say that, but they're a team that, man, last few years I find it hard to put a finger on them. They look terrible the first game, then back to back, sort of impressive wins of the Knights and Roosters. They've got AJ Brimson and Jaden Campbell, not really a known halfback in that team, but they're pulling it off. They run the ball. They're incredible ball runners, and obviously the fact that Tino Fasumula-Awi is back.
Bang.
Incredible, man. Like ACL last year, Queensland sorely missed him in that forward pack last
Yeah,
year
big
as
time.
well. Come back straight away. I'm not surprised that he's come back. They've looked pretty good. What have you made of their start to the season?
I mean, they've been good. I mean, I want them to be good, you know?
Do
So
you?
yeah, but they need to show me something first. And I guess they have it like the first two rounds. Like, I mean, Sydney are not probably the Sydney of old, but I love AJ Brimson as a player. I love Jaden Campbell as a player. It sucks that Kinney is gone down with a really bad bulging disc, I think.
Massive blow. They said he was centimeters away from like real
Yeah,
disaster. Like that's really
very.
sad and like
Um,
amazing to watch last year. Real big shame for them.
yeah, but I said to someone else today, does it maybe help them perversely in a way that like the problem with the Titans is they have 5,000 good fullbacks.
And a few hookers too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, no, you're right. You're right. They put three different fullbacks. Then they've been struggling for years to find out what to do with AJ and Jaden and how it all fits into the team.
yeah,
At least they're not playing Jaden off the bench anymore. I think that wasn't the move.
yeah,
But yeah, interesting. And then the other big one, the elephant in the room, although he did look good on the weekend, Dave Fifita.
yeah.
Mate, obviously on massive money. He hasn't been out playing him off the bench now. Des Hasler seems pretty happy to keep him there. We all know Billy showed him the door for Queensland last year, which I think was a pretty fair call. Um,
We don't agree on this one either.
you don't agree on this thing, that's fine. But to me, it's his effort areas, and I think it was defensively why
Yeah,
they were concerned about him in Origin. But he did come out on the weekend, came off the bench. I believe it was 56 minutes, 10 runs, 100 meters, try assist, 22 tackles, only three missed. So, I mean, pretty solid game from him. But we don't agree. So you think he should be back in that Queensland setup this year?
yeah. I do. He's not going to be in the Queensland team. That we saw how devastated they were by injuries and form last year, and Billy was still picking 60-year-old Kurt Capewell.
I mean, I will admit there were some interesting decisions from Queensland and Billy last year. Like he did seem
Yeah,
to really just be off for Fido, even when the stocks were looking pretty low.
yeah. Obviously, I think something has gone on there, but because the same thing happened with Cobbo last year as well. Like he was available to play and probably should have, but didn't. And look, I hate the way that it's sort of the same way that people talk about Latrell Mitchell to me about Fafita. They talk about run meters, hit ups, the sort of meat and potato stats for those different positions they play. But I'm like, they're not those players.
Yeah, that's fair.
For me, like you don't want Fafita churning through 50 tackles and making 180 hit ups with 60 contested meters. You want him there isolated on an edge with a tiny halfback on the 50-meter line, and he's probably going to score. So I just obviously, Billy and Des are greater rugby league minds than myself, but I find the conundrum of David Fifita quite odd. It was good that he had a great game on the weekend, but yeah, it's going to be interesting when they don't pick him. When they pick Max Plath over him for Origin in game one.
Well, I mean, and I mean, considering they got Tino and Gilbert back this year, who probably in
Yeah.
the team, so it is
Yeah,
going to
it's
be a
going to be
bit.
even harder for him to get in the team this year.
Yeah, they actually got those stocks back. Fingers crossed, no injuries, but it'll be interesting to see whether he gets back. The one I quickly forgot to get to you before as well on Origin. Right now, obviously, easy at fullback, isn't it, to pick? It's Kalen Ponga.
Yeah, 100%. It
Yeah.
can't be anyone else. And then, like, I think he is in the team, but I find it hard to find a spot for Reece if he's not playing fullback. I know they tried the two fullback things in game three last year, but I didn't love it, to be honest. Um,
I
yeah,
I think
because he can't really play wing, can he?
Reece and the thing from watching Reece closely these last few years, he's a confidence player.
Mm,
And I feel like if he was going to have a good game, he needs to be there from the beginning, set his groove, get off to a good start. I feel like he's not the type of player that can come on after half an hour to hope that he can have some X factor ability. I just don't think that's the type of player he is. He has X factor, but I don't think you can bring him on some sort of impact X factor player. Right now, if Ponga's fit and firing and playing absolutely on fire way those first couple games to start the season, it's a
yeah.
clear, easily number one for him.
Now, I was going to ask you, because I think this is prime for a PVL intervention. Do you think Ponga should be allowed to play for Queensland and the Kiwis?
Oh, mate, when it comes to selection things, I'm a little bit old school, to be honest. Like, I know it's not the perfect system, but I feel like if you play for Queensland, New South Wales, it has to be Australia. I think it would be good to look at, but obviously, Kalen loves Queensland and does not care about playing for Australia. We saw that when he played for the Maori All Stars earlier in the preseason, and he
Well,
obviously
I think the thing with Kalen, he wants to play at the highest possible level, right? And
now we're dissing international rugby league. Now you're really going to cut me deep.
I mean, that hurts me to the core because I love international rugby league.
So do I. I'm one of the
I'm a big
fair.
believer in what it could be, but
Yeah.
it has fallen off its perch, hasn't it? And the pinnacle for him is Queensland, and then probably the All Blacks, right?
Yeah, I mean that All Black story never dies, and
Yeah,
the more it picks up steam, you'd think that he's going to try his hand at rugby before he turns 30, like eventually. But big term contracts. But we do have the Ashes, Bristow. Do not forget that is
yeah,
back. Rugby league is back in a big way. It'll be on at like 2 in the morning or something on a Sunday. I'm sure lots of rugby league fans will
yeah.
get up and tune into that one.
My brother is living in London at the moment, and I sent him through the post because I was like, "Oh, you could go," and he's like, "Why would I go to that? It'll be 60 nil." So,
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
it's a
It's
success.
Yeah, no, I do too. Even if they can just get some people through the doors, mate. Look, we only got one more Queensland team left, and you know these guys better than I do as well because you used to obviously work up in Townsville. The Cowboys, mate. Now they have looked a little bit shoddy, but then pulled it back with their first win of the season over the Raiders. Just from my early dealings, I talked to Todd Payten a few weeks ago when they were in Sydney. Just my guess, my gut feeling would be if things don't pick up for them his head's on the chopping block. That's what I think about Todd Payten. I think he'd be just about one of the first coaches. If there's, I'm sure there is a market. I haven't looked at it, but he would just about one of the first ones to go. I just feel like there's always those things, if he lost Jason Tamalolo a few years ago when he gave him a public rev up, if he's lost the dressing room, that classic age-old line they used to boot coaches out the door. You do
Yeah,
get the feeling that he's obviously on the nose with some of the players, and Tamalolo is like the spiritual leader of that team and the leader of the team. But if he's not on your side, things wouldn't go well. They haven't responded well. Got saved by Jake Clifford of all people. Lovely journeyman. We know him from our time in Cairns and Northern Pride.
man,
But if
I am
he's,
the biggest Jake Clifford booster of all time.
I
I've
can't wait to
waited
hear
this
all
whole
about it.
podcast to talk up Jake Clifford.
Oh, great. Well, I'm not going to give you too long about it. But what have you made of then to start with, mate? Because I like Todd Payton. I like what he did, and he had a really strong start with the club. I'm just a
Mm.
little bit unsure about the direction if they're taking the right steps forward or if they're regressing a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's a tough roster. Like,
Well,
uh,
is it though? Because I was just looking. One of the things I was gonna say to you was not that they're all informed, but it's a lot of Origin experience, or at least have had Origin experience in that team. Not to say they're all gonna make the team this year, but I mean
yeah,
Hess is old now. You've got Nanai who's done it recently. But
yeah,
they've got players like Taulagi. They've got players there that are in there. Dearden, one of the best for Queensland the last couple of
yeah.
series. Sorry to step in. That was just one little thought I
No,
had
no,
because you think it is sort of like that, but then you look at the team, you're like, well, actually, there is plenty of experience. Reece Robson, New South Wales hooker, but they don't. It doesn't seem to be. It doesn't feel like that on the field.
that is true. I do feel like you name guys like Cohen Hess and
That was a
Nene.
stretch. I'll give you that one.
I mean, Nene has been a real disappointment this year, and also last year. Though I think I feel like he was one of the guys that was really lucky to get a Queensland jersey last year.
True,
Um,
and of course was dropped earlier this year.
yeah, and sort of all the stuff that he gets praised for, I feel like, well, but he's just sort of like a poor man's David Fifita. Like he's
Yeah,
scoring the sort of fluky tries off kicks. He's the one who's not racking up the meters. I just feel like Fifita's sort of a better version of what Nene does. But
yeah.
I mean, he was dropped for 1 week, so it wasn't much of a punishment. But the tide was sort of turning on him. But I feel sort of the you talked about Talamalolo being the talisman. I think the talisman at the moment for the Cowboys is Drinkwater, and I don't know how he has a very high ceiling, but I feel like the floor is quite low at the same time.
Yeah.
You could get a very poor Drinkwater game, and I feel like he's the sort of barometer for them. If he's on, they're going to blow teams off the park by like, yeah, what did they beat the Tigers by last year? But if he's having a bad game, a little bit like Reece, maybe a bit like Reece last year, when a sort of flashy X factor player that's got an area in him, but he's got the whole weight of the team on his shoulders. That's sort of what I mean when like their roster's a bit odd to me.
Yeah, no, fair. And that balance. And they obviously tried that young Duffy in the halves. Jake Clifford, of course, was making his comeback. Jake Clifford is a cool story, though, because obviously Journeyman had to go over to Super League for a few years after his first stint with the Cowboys. We know him from covering up in Cairns. I covered him a bit with the Northern Pride. Ty Williams up there always had big raps on him when he did get to
Mm,
play. And his comeback into this team, he's still a baby face, but he's obviously got a lot more experience under his belt than his first stint in the team. Two tries, named in lots of Team of the Weeks over this last round. You've already
yeah.
told me that you're a big fan. You reckon him and Dearden can be the steer them back into the finals and make them a bit of a dark horse this year?
Well, I hope so, mate. I've bought up most of the land on Jake Clifford Island, and
No, there was no
happy to
bidders. There's no other
I'm happy
bidders.
to I'm happy to reopen the airport for any tourists that want to come back to Jake Clifford Island. I'm a huge believer in his talent. Like, he's so big, he's got such a good pass, he's such a good kick. You know, if he could be good more often than he's not, he would be the best player in the NRL. But sadly, he has bitten me many times. But it was great to watch him play so well on the weekend. And you know, we've talked a lot about confidence players on this pod. He's the ultimate confidence player. Like, that first try he scored,
Is that the
that's
one
just
where he stepped around the
that's
team
just a dude feeling himself. Hey,
in the
like,
slowest way possible, but it worked?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
sort of a bit like Cody Walker, how Cody Walker can somehow get past people
Yeah.
sometimes. Um, yeah, and like we talked about sort of following his journey in Cairns. I still remember, maybe I'll put this tag on it, the greatest game I've ever seen live was a
Yeah.
CDRL
Whoa.
semi-final between the Tully Tigers, led by a 16-year-old Jake Clifford,
Whoa.
against the Ivanhoe Knights. And
We're talking about A grade at its finest in far
yeah,
north Queensland.
yeah, the lead changed like sort of 5 times in the last 10 minutes. It was The crowd was going wild, but like, I just remember Jake Clifford being the 16-year-old kid, just absolutely braining it. And you know, I thought I was watching the next JT. That hasn't come true just yet.
The next
But
JT, you heard it. Yeah.
yeah. And then I think he had that really good game for the Queensland under 20s team the next year. Do you
Hmm.
remember that at all? This is real
No.
goofy areas. But he threw like a crazy Benji Marshall, like flat as anything, 40-meter pass for a try. And it was just incredible. And I'm still holding on to that desperately. But if he plays like he does on the weekend, you know, he and like we Dearden is such a good player as well, big effort player.
I
Maybe
loved
sort of
him.
the opposite of a confidence player in Clifford, in that like you just know what you're going to get from Dearden. So maybe they're the perfect fire and ice. You
Yeah.
know, I really hope so for the Cowboys' sake.
Man, I'd never ride out a team with Dearden in it. Like what he's done from Queensland, I remember he had such a rough start having to make his debut during the Broncos' dark wooden spoon years. And then he was always their long-term future, of course, didn't work out. And I'm so happy to see that he's done so well at the Cowboys because he just finds a way to break through tackles when he has no right to break through tackles. You
He's
know,
all
like
gut. He's all gut. It's
yeah, yeah.
insane.
We can say it. It's that Queensland spirit in him.
Yeah.
Geez, they hate that saying down here. I got to tell you, mate.
Do
Every
they?
time
That's interesting.
I say it in the office all the time, and they're like, "Oh, I got that spirit." Like seriously, like they hate it. And you
I
know what?
did.
It's true. We do have Queensland spirit. We can't teach it, and you just don't get it. That's what I have to say from everyone south of the border.
I do love how I'll say triggered people down south got when I Queensland won that game in Adelaide a few years ago, and Billy Slater went on that infamous rant
Oh,
in the presser about how we struggle with droughts
they
and
bring it
floods.
up all the time. They hate
I
it.
mean, it's rugby league at its most ridiculous. You know, like, we're the only place in the world that gets droughts and floods, apparently. But
That's
yeah,
exactly in the. I can tell you in the Sydney office. That's what they say all the time. They say, "Yeah, you guys are the only guys who get droughts up there." I was like, "You just
yeah.
don't get it. You just don't
It's
get it."
it's that only just second to the Cooper Cronk poem he wrote about kicking that field goal, where he said that every sinew in his body came together in one perfect whole.
Oh God. What was that story that you did about the people who did the song about Thurston?
Oh yeah, that's probably one of my favorite stories I did in South.
Can you just give the audience? We haven't gone much into Bristow's career, but he has had some absolute highlight moments from dressing up as a colourful stop sign to go on the hills of Townsville for a singles night to playing the
Yeah.
saxophone.
Maybe
Uh,
she's in the other room. She won't want to hear that. Um,
and to getting swooped from a magpie that went viral and was on dating apps. That was just a little bit of a taste.
yeah, I mean, that sucked because I mean, dude, even in Brisbane when I moved back here in 2020, I was going on Tinder dates, and people were like, hang on, are you the magpie guy?
Tell us the magpie story because I'm actually legitimately petrified of birds, but seeing
Yeah.
other people get attacked does bring me a
Well,
lot
I
of
can give
joy.
you a bit of a behind the scenes. I know this will interest exactly you. Um,
Yes.
but the story was a woman was walking from the bus in Townsville to her home, and a magpie swooped and stole her like 5 grand hearing aid.
That is disgusting. Yeah.
So tracked down the woman, interviewed her, and then, as you can probably imagine, as a journo, what vision do you have for this story? Nothing. So,
Her sitting on
like,
the bench. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we got as many cutaways of that as we could. So I thought, oh, we'll take her back to the spot and like have her look for the headphone or the earpiece, sorry. And then nothing was happening, but I saw the magpie. I
The
saw it
same,
like a
the
kilometer
same.
away. And again, this is
Magpies,
behind,
magpies do remember you too. That's true.
yeah, that's why I can't go back to Townsville, mate. Um, the I told the camera to keep rolling, and I mean, maybe I'm ruining people's perceptions of this, but I went looking for the magpie. I walked directly under the tree where its nest was, and essentially waited until it swooped me. But I didn't. Hadn't wagered about how aggressive it would be because it got my ear.
That's what they do. I remember, man, I was petrified because when I was little, I remember reading a story. A 5-year-old boy, it attacked his face and poked his eye out. Okay, maybe it didn't poke
Yeah,
it eye out, but it made him
yeah.
permanently
No, I
blind in
believe
one
it.
eye.
Yeah. But luckily, my camera person, Kat Prosser, one of the greats,
Shout out.
yeah, she filmed the whole thing. She didn't think to help me at all. She got it all on film,
We are
and
going
then
to post that. We're definitely going to post that with this
yeah,
pod.
yeah, yeah. Thanks. Um, yeah, that was the other one because I'll shout them out because they're a great band. Boing Boing, a band from Cairns. A great sort of garage punk band, and they were on an Aussie tour recently. They had done a song about JT's career.
Another
Uh,
classic story from you, Bristow.
yeah, just hit him up, and the guy was hilarious. I had to get him a 6 pack of 4X on the way there. That was how he agreed to do the story. So, comment for cash, but I'll take it.
Oh, media watch, here we come.
Yeah.
No, that's all. I want to put that clip up too, man, because that was awesome.
Give me a
Um,
super cut, mate. I've got one ready.
I'm definitely taking that.
Yeah.
And before I let you go, I want to just whip through these teams, mate. I want to go with who do you think is going to be the best performing Queensland team? Who do you think is going to be the worst performing team this season?
I mean, it's not a hard question. I think I still believe in the Broncos pretty heavily, and the Dolphins. I can't see how they fight their way out of it. At least this year, they just don't have the cattle, and like a tough break for a first year coach finding his feet, even though we know he's fairly experienced. I think it's the Broncos for the top four, and the Dolphins potentially for the spoon, fighting it out with the Eels.
They're going to be right in it, mate. I mean, I wouldn't write off the Cowboys completely. I still haven't seen enough from them, but they do have enough experience, like you said, with Drinkwater,
Yeah.
Dearden. If Clifford does actually live up to a bit of potential this year,
And Townsville is such a hard place for opposing teams to come and play too. I think that's another thing that's sort of in the like they'll win enough games at home. I think.
yeah.
Um,
And that is what they did. They opened their season, obviously, with the first win at home on the weekend.
yeah, yeah. So I think that will always help the Cowboys. But yeah, I can't see many things going well for the Dolphins from here.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I think the Broncos, yeah, I'm still tipping top four. I've been set all season that it was Penrith, Storm, Sharks. I'm a little bit concerned about the Penrith now, though. But I think Broncos are in that
You
four.
didn't put Bronx top four.
No, sorry, what did I say? Penrith, Sharks, Broncos, Melbourne.
Oh no, you
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So get them that top four. And I reckon it'll be out of the Cowboys and Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are going to struggle because they're the team like, who are they missing too? Are they missing anyone?
Well, I mean, Flegler's the big one.
Yeah, of course. And
But
we didn't touch on him. Is he going to be back this season? He's pushing to, but it's still unknown.
yeah, I don't think so, man. It's from I'll say the famous Vince Rugari line. I'm not a doctor, but it's listening to stuff like NRL physio. Like it's a pretty crazy injury, and it's still
Shoulder nerve damage? Shoulder nerve
yeah.
damage,
And
is that what it is? Yeah.
according to Brian, it's like an injury that could just stop getting better one day. Like he could wake up one day and it stays at 70% forever,
Yeah.
which is terrifying to think about and sucks for the Dolphins because he's their big money forward.
And he hasn't played the last 2 years.
Yeah.
basically. I mean, and we all saw what he could do for the Broncos. Crazy to think they had Haas, Flegler, and Carrigan, and
Yeah.
yeah, massive blow
Thank
for
God it
them.
wouldn't spoon.
We don't talk about those things here, Bristow. Look, thank you very much. And Queensland too, mate. It's going to be a tough one. Obviously, back to the future for them. Laurie Daly with New South Wales. We obviously touched on Tino and Gilbert, two big ins. Munster wasn't there last year. That's another big in for us. And Ponga coming back, obviously ruled him out of last series. So that's a lot of cattle coming back for Queensland. You'd have to think they're going to be like right back in. I mean, they almost did it last year too, losing that crazy
Yeah.
decider at Suncorp when they were in front for a long time. What's your tip for Origin?
Yeah, well, Queensland, obviously, but
Silly question.
mainly not really because of any of the ins with Queensland, mainly because of what New South Wales have done with the coach. Now, Laurie Daly, obviously a great fella, but it's is just so New South Wales to go back to Daly. And the sort of weird thing about New South Wales last year under Madge was they didn't do New South Wales things. They just, did the smart thing. Like I think when they had a one of their centers went out, they didn't fart around with like, do we make Turbo the center a half cooked Turbo? No, we just put in Bradman Best, the best center.
A form center who's actually based on how he's going at
Yeah,
at current
whereas in
time.
previous years they would have tried to manufacture a fullback into a center or stuff, and they won. I feel
Yeah,
like Daly's previous tenure was he the Kurt Gidley captaining from the bench year?
could have been. Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like he's primed for a bizarre coaching choice, and Queensland feast on those sort of things.
yeah. No, it's gonna be tough, man. Like Magic did an amazing thing with them, sending us to the Blue Mountains away from the hustle bustle of Sydney last year, and like they were pretty good to deal with. But
I'm
yeah,
also on that. I only heard this recently. Actually, I believe Queensland aren't going to Sanctuary Cove this year.
I heard that as well. Yeah, so they're actually gonna mix it up for the first. How long have they been going there for?
Oh, like since the Mal years, I think.
Long time, very long
Yeah,
time. Where are they
yeah.
gonna go? Where are they gonna go for training camp?
I believe what I've heard is Sunshine Coast right now.
Okay.
Maybe Twin Waters there because I know a lot of clubs base themselves there. They've got a couple of gyms and footy fields ready to go. I know the Roosters stay up there whenever playing in Brisbane.
Yeah, okay. And that's getting away from the craziness of yeah, they're not doing what they did in Sydney with New South Wales and
I
not going
think
to the
I think
Gold
they got
Coast.
pissed off with the last couple of years. Sanctuary Cove would hold a yacht convention
Oh, is that right? All the
at the
yachties were
same
there.
at the same time, and it was just nuts, like so busy. Not for the Maroons, for the multi-million-dollar yachts there. So I
Yeah,
think,
can't piss off the yacht owners.
yeah, definitely not.
And then the very last thing before you go, and I should have said at the beginning, but I love your setup. So can you just talk us through, for those who don't know too, Bristow, you're big into your sports memorabilia. If anyone needs anything sold, track him down on Instagram because he can tell you what a 1990 Adelaide Rams cap is worth or whatever
Hell
it is
yeah.
else, whatever else you could find. Yeah, you're into your sports memorabilia and stuff like that. Yeah, what have you got behind you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Jersey guy, which I can hear my girlfriend wincing through the door. There, I spend a lot of my time and money that I probably could spend on other things, like saving up for a house mortgage on jerseys. I've got a 1994 Brisbane Poinsettias jersey on right now,
Beautiful, very nice.
which is
Love the
good.
red and white.
Got a East Tigers, Chargers, Crushers jersey up here. I think if
I
you're able
like
to do that.
I like the Crushers one. Yeah, I've seen that before. I've seen you wear that before.
Yeah, that was one of my greatest finds. Actually, I know this is very boring for everyone, but this was sort of before the jersey boom, maybe 2017, and there was like I believe one of the nine NRL or Fox accounts had posted a photo of a Crusher, and there was a top comment of a guy in the comments said, "Oh, I have one of these." So I just friended him and messaged him. I was like, "Oh, mate, would you sell it to me?"
He slid into his DMs.
Yeah, and he was like, "Yeah, man." He was in England, and he sold it to me for £50, which I think at the time was like $130. But he wouldn't send it internationally, so I got it sent to a friend in England and got it sent to me. So
Jesus, that is commitment for the jersey.
very happy with that. Yeah, no, I spent way too much money on them. I need to get rid of them. Would you like to buy some, Dane?
No, thank you. I've got
Special
my.
price.
What do I have? Did I bring it with me? Yeah, this is my. Oh God, this is gonna mess the whole background up. We got the 19, what is
Is
it?
that a chord? That is beautiful,
Yeah,
mate.
yeah,
Yeah.
1992. That's probably my prized old school possession. Queensland
I
corduroy, it's Queensland Maroons cap for those who are listening.
Yeah, hats like that go for a lot of money, and I mean, they're beautiful, but I've never considered that's maybe the weakness I don't have. I can't imagine spending $200 on a cap just because I would lose it instantly, I believe.
It's got to be for jerseys.
Yeah, yeah, that's sort of when you're getting into nice jersey territory.
Oh, mate, we'll have to come back for a jersey pod. I don't know if we've lost all the audience, but I do think the hardcore rugby league fans out there would appreciate it. Look, Bristow, thank you very much, mate. You've done an amazing job up there in Brisbane. Obviously, solo, you can catch Bristow on Fox Sports News. Do an amazing job just as a one-man band, really. It's a tough job up there, like you said, having to cover those four teams. And obviously, the Lions have done well with grand finals as well. So you've had a pretty tough job up there, mate. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing up there, and thanks so much for joining us on Season Ticket Holders.
I loved it, mate, and I love that. After all these years, Tim Henderson is still doing free work for his journo mates.
And that is the big shout out to Tim too, which we both know created the Season Ticket Holders logo.
Yeah, it
So
looks great, mate.
thank you very much. I got to chuck it out there more, but yeah, no, really good job out there. Timmy does a mad job, so I do owe you a six pack, Tim. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. All right, guys, thank you very much for listening. Thanks again, Bristow, and we'll catch you soon. Take care. Bye bye.